Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with another installment of Mutant Monday, and this time we'll be looking at the first issue of the newest X title, Sword. Now, Sword, for those who may be unaware, first appeared way back during Joss Whedon's Astonishing X-Men run, and they were basically the off-world sister organization to S.H.I.E.L.D. They dealt with threats from outside the solar system, basically, targeted at Earth. Sentient world observation and um, I don't remember the artist is, but anyway, their director was a woman by the name of Abigail Brand, who became almost immediately smitten with Beast. He reminds her of her father. Physically speaking. She's half alien, so yeah. Anyway, Sword would later be folded into Alpha Flight. Sword and Alpha Flight would later be folded together, and they would be basically kind of a... they would be in charge of, taking care of stuff like this. When, however, after Empire, Brand got actually rather pissed off at the commander of Alpha Flight, Colonel Carol Danvers, and because Danvers knew about the Kotati, who the villains of Empire, knew they were living on the moon, and never thought to tell anyone in Alpha Flight. They would have been under observation. They would have been making kind of doing like, huh. They're making some weird stuff that that seems a bit more, that seems a lot less peaceful. This seems a little sus to me. But no, they didn't say anything, and so, yeah. Sword was based out of an orbital platform known as the Peak, which was utilized in Ten of Swords, and both in the beginning and in the end, and is now the once again the base of operations for Sword. So let's take a look at Sword number 1. We begin with a quote from Abigail Brand. "This is what comes next." A small metal ball is small compared to the Peak. Is heading towards the Peak. We also get a look at how the Peak has integrated Krakoan tech into itself. And the Krakoan tech is actually thriving in, the vacuum of space somehow. Yeah. But then we get a breakdown of who's who for Sword. Brand is the station commander. There's there's medical energy resources, which is headed up, executive produced by Fabian Cortez. Logistics is headed up by Quintitian Manifold. The teleport team consists of Blink. I think it's the Age of Apocalypse version, but I'm not 100% certain. Lila Cheney, Gateway, Vanisher, and Amelia Vaught. Technology and engineering is headed up by the station technologist, WizKid. WizKid's a character I know very little about. I really only read a few appearances of his back in the Inferno trades. He has similar powers to Forge, if I'm remembering things correctly. But he's also got a tech team under him. Yeah, for when it comes to diplomacy and negotiations, we have Ambassador Extraordinary, Frenzy, and Armor, Ambassador in Training. Also, we have a Galactic Ambassador aboard the station, Pybok of the Kree Skrull Empire, of the Kree Skrull Alliance. Security team, headed up by Security Director Cable, with the sub-directors Random and Risque, and then you have the security team itself. Observation analysis, there's an unnamed sonic analyst, and then a visual analyst, Peeper, followed by an analysis team. But it turns out that the metal sphere arriving at the Peak contains a guest. the council member, the Quiet Council liaison for Sword, Magneto, who is met by Cable, Random, and Risque. And after arriving on the station, Magneto begins moving the station, which kind of surprises Cable, who explains that he's conducting an inspection while moving a 1,000-ton space station into place. Magneto responds that he also plans to walk and chew a little gum. But Brand takes over the inspection. One asking him, because the metal sphere, he used his powers to get that from Krakoa to the point, or to the peak. And also to minimize it so that he could, so he still had the ball, had it with him for the return trip. But Brand asks him, why don't you use one of the gates? To which Magneto responds, why does a man climb a mountain? And she retorts, when there's a perfectly good ski lift. And he adds that it's good to travel a harder road sometimes. After all, if we never tested our limits, we might assume we had some. So now we get a personal log from Brand. At my desk at the peak for the first time in how long? Feels like years. I've got to say, I like what they've done with the place. They've built it out a little, but the Krakoan tech means we can run the whole thing with a crew of 200 or 300. I'm envisioning a tight 6-division structure, answerable directly to me. The less chance of a repeat of what happened to the old crew, the better. At the last session, Doc Gamble asked if I feel any guilt about that. I gave the honest answer. If I'd still been station commander that day, then yes, I probably would. If I'd allowed more than 6,000 souls under my command to be torn apart by an interdimensional Viscora infection, thanks to an experiment I not only didn't approve but wasn't even aware of, because of course Urquhart didn't know what the science team was working on, why would he care? He was only supposed to be in charge. I'm sure I'd feel some kind of way about it. I am angry that I wasn't informed. I respect secrecy, but if some passing scavs had stumbled on the dead station instead of the X-Men, the Viscora would be picking Earth out of their teeth right now. Alpha Flight needed to know, and we didn't. Another example of a wearying trend. It was a waste of too much time trying to build that program into something while the human governments cut our funding and kept us in the dark. In fact, at this stage, I'd class Alpha as an active problem, especially given who they appointed as my successor. Danvers was the obvious choice. She's got the experience, she's got the contacts, she's half Kree. I was hoping our little set-to at the Kree-Skrull Emperor's wedding would nudge her toward taking the post when they offered it. The rank-and-file outfit, at least. Drama at the feast, fortune on the field, the old Kree saying, I can use that. If not Danvers, I'd guess Peter Corbeau, maybe even Eugene Judd. But no, the idiots managed to surprise me. They put Henry Gyrick in charge. The Weasel emerges from his burrow once again. I'm guessing he's made some friends in high places. We'll see if I can do the same. It'll be tricky. I've never been so good at making friends. Making plans, though, that I can do. Boy. So, during the tour, Magneto and WizKid are formally introduced. Both are rather enamored of the other. But there is a launch pending, and it's explained what Eric's doing or what Magneto's doing with moving the station. He is placing the station in a geosynchronous orbit around Krakoa. We also get a breakdown of what's going on intergalactically. Snark War, an unstoppable alien war of succession that could destabilize the galactic peace. This was started in the kickoff. This kind of started in a post-Empire issue of Guardians of the Galaxy. Because of the Kree-Skrull alliance, there's now a galactic economic crash that has destroyed the common currency. And then, of course, there's something roaming through space, killing and eating whole planets. And it isn't Galactus. It's Null. But she explains further that, everyone on Krakoa is, well, an Earther. They think in terms of countries. She, however, has to think like a spacer, which means, thinking in solar systems. And she explains to Magneto that Sword can't only speak for Krakoa. They have to speak for Soul. Elsewhere, in Diplomatic Suite 1, aka the Stranger Room, our two diplomats are getting to know one another via fisticuffs. Frenzy is fighting Pybok, the Power Scroll. But it turns out that she's demonstrating what the Diplomatic Suite can do, as he explains to her. As he explains to Brand when she arrives, that he compliments the well-appointed Hollow Arena shows a keen understanding, and also shows a keen understanding of the nuance of ceremonial combat. He's impressed, and he will make his recommendations accordingly. But there are issues with the possibility of a imperial visit in the near future. Namely that, as Krakoa is the nation largely backing Sword, well, the Emperor's mother-in-law is kind of sort of listed as an enemy of the state of Krakoa. That mother-in-law being none other than the Scarlet Witch. And that's actually something that does hit Magneto pretty hard. And apparently, Hulkling thinks the world of his mother-in-law, and he considers it a great shame that the Krakoans don't. Magneto simply says that, excuses himself, saying it's nearly time for the launch. But word of Magneto has reached Pybok's ears already, and it's stated that I'd heard tell of the Master of Magnetism, an Earther who bends steel with a thought, but not, it seems, his own. And he then asks if Frenzy knows him, and she explained that once upon a time, she all but worshipped Magneto. But then he moved on. On the way to the launch, Brand and Magneto have the pleasure of running into Fabian Cortez, who promptly prostrates himself in front of Magneto. And, well, Cortez is wishing to apologize for his past sins, which, in all honesty, there's quite a few. He did kill Magneto once upon a time. In X-Men number 3, if I remember correctly. Claremont Lee. Cortez, who had brought up a group of followers to Asteroid M, used his power enhancement abilities to, well, enhance the powers of Magneto. And turns out that he was part of a group called the Upstarts, and he did it to kill Magneto and the Acolytes. And, he seemed to have succeeded, and in fact was for a good long while squarely in the lead of the Upstarts competition. No one else had taken out as prominent a name as Magneto. if I remember correctly, Trevor Fitzroy and Shelby Shaw came close with bringing down Sebastian Shaw. But he does seem to still be somewhat of a supremacist, as he does wish to speak to Magneto at a later time about the Council's edicts concerning humans. As Magneto and Brand walk away, Magneto does ask, "Why Cortez?" And Brand simply says that slim pickings, short notice, they're working on it. But they get to the control room and meet the Six. And also, we meet Peepers. And, of course, Magneto is thrilled to see his old friend. Cortez also sees this as like, I feigned worship of Magneto, and he blew me off. This guy with the funny ears and the eyes, however, they have to go get a beer together. But anyway, so they do their thing. Frack. Okay, so mutant technology. To explain what it is they do in, well, this. I'll just read the... Okay. This has become a working umbrella term for the gathering of mutants into specific groups or circuits in which their complementary powers are synchronized with one another to achieve a specific goal. The earliest named example of this is probably the fastball special, a combat tactic in which two mutants, cross-reference Wolverine 002-02, Colossus 002-06, coordinate their abilities to create a simple, long-range attack of a type neither could have achieved on their own. However, the best example of mutant technology, as it is now understood, remains the Five, a circuit of 5 mutants, for cross-reference Resurrection 001-01, formed specifically for the bodily resurrection of other mutants. Though full resurrection requires a second stage of telepathic surgery, this can be performed by any single standard telepathic talent with access to cerebro resources. In this light, considering the Five as a natural evolution of the fastball special, the question must be asked, given that the Five allows mutant kind an infinite timeline in which to experiment with mutant technology, what might they in turn evolve toward? The Six is the first step towards answering that question. They are a universal/multiversal far retrieval circuit. The first stage is translocation. The second stage is manifestation retrieval. So the first stage circuit, as the Five require one additional standard telepath for a full resurrection, the Six require a circuit of 5 mid to long range teleporters for a full retrieval. The 5 currently assigned are Blink, Lila Cheney, Gateway, Vanisher, and Amelia Vaught. These 5 have been selected for ability and availability. Other teleporters will act as backup should the need arise. Nightcrawler and Magic being listed. Cross-references to both Nightcrawler and Magic are included. The second stage circuit, the Six, you have the Control, WizKid, high-level technopath with the adaptability necessary to align and adjust mutant circuits in operation. Backup, Forge. The Power, Fabian Cortez. Energy Augmenter, provides the boost required for circuit operations inside the launch pad, presumably. Backup is Redacted. The Shield, Armor, generates protective exoskeleton that, once aligned with the Power and the Control, extends to the entire circuit. Backup is Sally Blevins, aka Skids. The Guide, Eden Fessy, Manifold. A space folder or quintition, uniquely able to both navigate the Redacted and assist in forming the Redacted once there. No backup as of yet. The Guide is also he is the sixth part of the first state of the is also part of the first Manifold, is part of the first circuit. the translocation circuit as well. The eye, Peter Quinn, Peeper. Broad spectrum telescopic, microscopic, spectroscopic vision, able to discern the Kuiper particles that form redacted. Backup is Doc. And finally we have the Foundry, Gloria Munoz, aka Risque. Implosive field generator, condenses redacted from the high density Kuiper fields found inside the redacted. Backup is Shen Zorn, or Zorn. Operation of both circuits. Unified by the control, the first stage circuit acts as a resource and anchor for the guide, allowing him to translocate the entirety of the second stage circuit while saving his energies for the retrieval work. The second stage circuit arrives at the staging platform constructed by previous second stage operations at the redacted. And then the power strengthens the shield. The shield protects the six. The six stand at the shore, this far shore, this farthest point of all, and then farther, farther still, into the mystery. And we see the six going in, teleporting into elsewhere. And as they get to their elsewhere, Manifold grabs a small black pyramid and returns with it. As they return, WizKid states that they just broke some cosmic laws. Manifold agrees, yeah, they did. And apparently he also came fairly close to dying out there. But they made it back, and they brought it back. WizKid has checked it for radiation, nothing on any spectrum. It's safe and even cooled. And Magneto completely agrees now with how Brand described Sword. Sword is the mutant space program, but what she's building goes beyond anything he ever dreamed. And he's actually kind of at a loss for words, and then she repeats the quote from the first page of the comic. This is what comes next. And the issue wraps with a quote from Victor Von Doom. You have stolen fire from heaven to hold in your hands. How could I object? I have done the same myself with one significant difference. I wore gloves. Be careful. That is where the issue ends. So the big question I do have, I do have to wonder, is how Sword is going to lead to the epilogue of the, I believe it was the Empire Aftermath Wedding Special, which shows Brand having basically gone to war against the Kree-Skrull Alliance and seemingly won. That said, it will be interesting to see what is coming with all of this. I can't remember if Sword is going to be involved with King in Black. I know that there will be. I know there's going to be X-Men involvement because, well, it's a big crossover, and well, yeah, the X-Men. So, anywho, that's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal account in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.